What's going on, guys? Happy Monday. I am Russ Dorsey. That is my man, Ben Verlander. Welcome to FanDuel Sports Network Live. Ben, how we doing?
Doing great, man. We are back, ready to thrive. Got some great games today. Had a good game already. The Tigers in the W column once again. We're going to talk about them today. But by the way, 6-1 since they played the Dodgers. The Tigers are rolling, Russ.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for anybody. Got a lot to talk about today. But first, we want to remind you that watching your local team is easier than ever before with FanDuel Sports Network. If we're part of your cable or satellite package, you're good to go. Just check your TV lineup. Prefer to stream? Use your TV provider login on the FanDuel Sports Network app. No cable, no problem. Subscribe through the app with monthly, seasonal, and annual plans. You can even stream your team on Prime Video with an add-on subscription. Availability varies by region. Don't miss a pitch. Check getmyhometeams.com now to see if FanDuel Sports Network is in your area. Been a ton of things happened in baseball over the weekend. A lot of headlines. We're going to throw some at the fine folks at home. The big one, the one we're going to talk about the most today, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signing a 14-year, $500 million extension to stay with the Toronto Blue Jays for the rest of his career. And that's something we don't see anymore. You could see the rest of the headlines from the weekend. One of the big ones, Blake Snell, going to be going on the 15-day IL with left shoulder inflammation. But, Ben, let's get back to the one at the top. Vlad Jr., the guy has had as many expectations as we've seen from a prospect in a long time. You have the namesake of the Hall of Famer Vlad Guerrero Sr. You come into baseball as this young kid that should, change this franchise, and all of a sudden you do it in a big time way, and now you get a 14-year, $500 million deal. What was your reaction when you saw the news last night that Vlad was going to be a Blue Jay for life?
Yeah, I loved it, man. I think one, I like when big time players stay in the markets that they came up through and a fan base rallies around them. So you have these elite players that, kids grow up idolizing this guy. I want to be Vlad Jr. And, there's obviously always going to be this in sports, but those players end up going to the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers. But now it feels like over the past year or so, we're seeing guys get their deals to stay in town. Vladdy, Jackson Merrill, Bobby Witt Jr. I love this for Vladdy Jr. And to be honest with you, Russ, I almost feel like Vladdy's got this almost a bad rap over the past couple years for his weight and athleticism. And I saw this deal and thought, you know what? Good for him. This guy has come up, and he did have some flack, but he's worked on himself. He works so hard. He's athletic. He's a Gold Glove winner at first base. He's strong as can be. So I think he deserves a ton of credit for obviously his play on the field, but getting himself to this position, I think he's almost a little underrated in the public eye, to be honest with you. I love this deal.
No, I'm with you. A well-rounded player, runs better than you think, a better defender than you think. At his ceiling, he's an MVP. In a world where Shohei doesn't exist in 2021, he's the unanimous MVP. He just turned 26 years old, so he's going to play this whole season at the age of 26. Look at those numbers right there since debuting in 2019. Already a four-time All-Star. He's won a Gold Glove. Good defender. This isn't Pete Alonso. And if you're wondering, well, why don't first basemen get paid? Because first basemen usually aren't as well-rounded as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He had age on his side because when he came up. And so for me, I look at this deal for the Toronto Blue Jays, and for Vladdy, obviously, somebody throws $500 million at you, you're feeling really good. But I look at it in terms of Toronto. They went out and swung big on Shohei Ohtani. They went out and swung big on Juan Soto. And if you're Vlad Jr., you're looking at it and you're like, all right, these brothers getting wined and dined. I want to get wined and dined too. But then, Toronto does the right thing. And you make a great point, Ben. We don't see it in today's day and age in baseball of players staying their entire career in one place. And I just wrote about it today for Yahoo. In a time where teams are always worried about revenues, what they may or may not have, the CBT thresholds and what terms of what their tax penalties might be, teams are looking for any reason not to do what the Toronto Blue Jays did. But the Blue Jays looked at it and said, all right, we've swung and missed on all these superstars. Meanwhile, we got this guy in-house, been a good citizen, represented our franchise well, born in Canada, and is also one of the best players in the game. Yeah, let's go ahead and open up the checkbook for him because this is the guy we want in the middle of our lineup for the next 14 years. So good on the Toronto Blue Jays. At a time when you're not seeing teams do that, they did it, and they did it in a big way.
Well, I completely agree, but let me just say this: when it comes to the Blue Jays team and an organization, this can't be it. This was a necessary move to have your cornerstone there for the next decade. I'm not talking the 14 years because they're not paying you for 36 to 40 years old. They're paying you for the next decade. This was a necessary move, and they tried to spend all that money, weren't able to do it. Now you turn around and say, all right, we're going to give it to Vladdy. He's our guy going forward. But they've had Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on their team for the past 5+ years, since the COVID season, basically right before that. And it hasn't worked for them. So this can't be like well, guys, we spent the money. It's just not working. Now I feel like is when the real work needs to be done. And I was thinking about this earlier. Let me know if you agree, Russ, but it almost felt like the Blue Jays have watched every team in this division pass them by, right? Yankees are better. I'd say the Red Sox are now better. I'd say the Orioles are better with their young core. And it felt like that window that was there for the Blue Jays was almost completely shut. I almost feel like what this deal does is flip that. Now the window feels like it's partially open going up. And now it's about, can you push that window completely open? Or do you just stay there and say, well, we have our guy Vladdy, now let's go in? You have to do more, but this feels like the start that needed to be done.
1,000%. Because I think if you let this deadline go on with no extension, you had Bichette, Vladdy getting to the trade deadline. Let's say you don't play well. Now people are asking them, oh, do you don't think you're going to get moved to the deadline? Then you have to start thinking as a front office, do we move these guys at the deadline? Now you've gotten rid of that dark cloud. It's not hovering over the organization. And you're right. Now you can reopen the window that was probably heading towards being completely closed, partially open it up. You already go out, you get Anthony Santander, you sign Alejandro Kirk to an extension. So you're figuring out what your next core of your next great Blue Jays team is. Now you have the centerpiece of that in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now you can decide, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to keep Bo Bichette? Do we move Bo Bichette and move on? Do we find another shortstop? What are we going to do with our pitching past 2026? You got the Springer money coming off the books in 2027. Same thing with Kevin Gausman, Alex Manoah in probably next season will come back from Tommy John surgery, and then you hopefully have an ace in your rotation again. So you have a lot of things you can do now, where before it was just like, all right, let's move these guys and hope we get some decent prospect capital
100%.
And start the rebuild.
You were so lost, and it almost feels like, okay, now you have your staple piece figured out. Now to me, it's like now the work begins, right? You're starting, like, where you're starting now. You have your centerpiece, you have your staple, you have the guy the fan base loves, your elite superstar. You have that. What you did around him before didn't work, but over the next year to 2 years, let's regroup and try it all again. But I think the main point for me when it comes to Vladdy himself is just when people hear this deal, 14 years, $500 million, one, again, it's not for the last 5 years of this deal. You're trying to win over the next decade. And two, this isn't just some guy that slugs with a dumpy body in the big leagues. He's worked his tail off to get where he is. He's strong. He's athletic. He runs the bases well. He's a Gold Glove winner, and he's 26 years old. That's why he's getting $500 million, because he's the best player at his position in all of Major League Baseball. He's young, and he deserved this money. I love it for Vladdy Jr.
Now, this has a lot of ripple effects. And the guy that woke up this morning feeling really good about this deal outside of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was Kyle Tucker, who now becomes the best player available going into this year's free agent market. And Kyle Tucker, you talk about all-around players with Vladdy. Kyle Tucker is as close to a 5-tool player as we're going to find in the big leagues. Last year, if he doesn't foul a ball off his shin, he's hitting over 40 homers, 30 bags consistently every year, Gold Glove outfielder in right field. You're already seeing with the Chicago Cubs, he's one of the leaders in OPS in the National League, just won National League Player of the Week. I'm thinking if you're Kyle Tucker, you're now putting yourself, you're like, okay, Vladdy set the market. I'm probably going to be looking at somewhere between 450, 475, but in a bidding war, maybe he could get 500 or upwards of $500 million like Vladdy got. I know Vladdy has age on his side, being 26 years old. But Kyle Tucker's 28. Going to play this whole season at 28 years old. going into next season at 29, you got to be feeling really good if you're the Tucker camp.
Absolutely. You're feeling great if you're him. If I'm the Chicago Cubs, I say, look, you just experienced Wrigley Field. You are National League Player of the Week. You play great at Wrigley. We love you here. The fan base loves you. We don't want this to get to the All-Star break. Let's figure out something to keep you here, because he is going to be expensive. And yes, a few years older than Vladdy. He's 29 years old, but man, you're in your 20s hitting free agency as an MVP caliber player. You're 100% right, Russ. Nobody is waking up feeling better than Kyle Tucker after seeing that deal. And although he feels great, you mentioned he's National League Player of the Week. By the way, American League Player of the Week is Alex Bregman. So you know who's not feeling good? Astros fans waking up seeing Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman Player of the Week in different leagues on different teams. Not good for them.
And here's my thing, Ben. If you're Kyle Tucker, you have absolutely no reason to sign an extension right now.
100%.
Obviously, you can see the Sears Tower right there. Everybody knows I've written about the Chicago Cubs for a long time before I became a national writer. I got Cubs fans in my mentions all the time. You got to sign Kyle Tucker today. Folks, it doesn't work like that. You better enjoy Kyle Tucker in 2025 and then let the rest be the rest, because you bring Kyle Tucker in so you can have a franchise-altering superstar in the middle of your lineup, and you're doing that. And their offense has been one of the best in baseball. That's what bringing Kyle Tucker in does. And, you know, you can't worry about the trade. You can't worry about Paredes. You can't worry about Cam Smith. You got to worry about 2025 and winning the NL Central in 2025. And after that, you let the chips fall where they may. But, yeah, if you're Kyle Tucker, yes, congrats to Vladdy. But I think these are two different situations. You have a guy in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that's grown up in that organization. And so there's a lot more reason for him to stay. Clearly, he wanted to stay with the Blue Jays. So good on him. But the Tucker situation, a lot different.
For sure. And a lot different than the Jackson Merrill situation and some of the other young studs in the game. Jackson Merrill grew up in an organization. Vladdy Jr. grows up in an organization. Another very team-friendly deal. Ronald Acuna Jr. grows up in an organization. Kyle Tucker ain't there. Look, I get it. Cubs fans are extend him. But at this point, an extension is probably going to cost just as much as hitting free agents. Like, we know the player he is. He's an MVP type of player. He would have been in contention last year if it weren't for his injury and obviously what Aaron Judge did. We know the player he is. So it's not like at this point you're getting a discount on Kyle Tucker if you sign him right now compared to in 6-7 months. So completely different situation. Nobody woke up feeling better than him. That guy is going to be one rich man here in a few months. And I love it. I'm friends with Kyle. He's a great, great dude and plays the game hard. And it's great to see him thriving at Wrigley. It's so hard, Russ, for a new guy to go to a new organization, even when you're a stud. Look at Francisco Lindor when he first went to the Mets. It is tough to go to a new place where you're expected to be the best player on that team and get them to the playoffs, and it's your job. What he's done through the first week and a half of the season is really, really impressive.
Absolutely. Two guys that I know slept well last night in Major League Baseball, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Kyle Tucker. We have a lot more coming up on FanDuel Sports Network Live. The Detroit Tigers, they've been playing really well, as have the San Francisco Giants. And Ben, you know somebody over there. We'll talk about the surging Giants coming up next.
Your toe chains are a little loose. Could spark a wildfire.
Thanks a lot.
Anytime. You should check out SmokeyBear.com. They've got a bunch of tips on wildfire prevention.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
I love betting on the NBA with FanDuel, especially when I've got the world's greatest basketball mind on my side. What's up, Chuck GPT?
What's up, Chuck IRL?
What do you think about this parlay?
It's great.
But why don't you use me for something you really need help with?
What does Charles Barkley really need help with?
Hundreds of results found.
Uh-oh.
Fashion sense, basic math.
What?
Being on time, portion control, conflict resolution, enunciating, free throw percentage.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
Eating vegetables.
Hey! Yo, there's someone at my door.
Hi, you are currently being recorded.
Hey, put the package back.
With Ring, you can make them hit the road from anywhere. Meet Jonathan Thompson, an award-winning international travel writer on a mission to discover the world's most dynamic, adrenaline-fueled destinations. From once-in-a-lifetime outdoor adventures to local traditions and cultures, Jonathan will immerse you in the most vibrant metropolitan areas. Elevate your senses, ignite your wanderlust, and let the journey begin as he explores the world's best adventure cities.
Welcome back to FanDuel Sports Network Live. Just want to remind you, watching your local team is easier than ever with FanDuel Sports Network. If you're part of your cable or satellite package, you're good to go. Just check your TV lineup. Prefer to stream? Use your TV provider to log in on the FanDuel Sports Network app. No cable, no problem. Subscribe through the app with monthly, seasonal, or annual plans. You can even stream your team on Prime Video with an add-on subscription. Availability varies by region. Don't miss a pitch. Check GetMyHomeTeams.com now to see if FanDuel Sports Network is in your area. As we welcome you back, Russ Dorsey, Ben Verlander, and Ben, the San Francisco Giants. I know you're expecting the Dodgers. The Giants are surging, leading the NL West after sweeping the Seattle Mariners. They are rolling. They got some brothers playing really good baseball there in the Bay. Show a graphic of the standings in the NL West right now. They are 8-1, Ben. And I know we talked about the Dodgers' red-hot start. Would they ever lose? Would they go 162-0? No, they dropped a couple to the Phillies over the weekend. San Diego Padres playing really well. But it's the Giants at the top of maybe the toughest division in all of Major League Baseball. Show you a graphic here of the players playing well. Vladimir Flores still getting it done after all these years. Elliot Ramos was a first-time All-Star last year. Young Hooley, big-time free agent for them last year, goes down with the torn labrum, came back healthy, playing really well. And Robbie Ray, tight pants and all, getting it done. A 3.18 ERA to start the season for Robbie Ray. Ben, this is a really fun and interesting organization, the San Francisco Giants. You bring Buster Posey in to be the president of baseball operations. He wants to get back to the days of Buster Posey, of Bruce Bochy, where baseball was king in San Francisco for a long time, right? The Warriors come in, they take all the shine out of the Bay. But you look at this team, you go out and you add Willy Adames, and you bring in the Justin Verlander to go in your rotation with Robbie Ray and Logan Webb, and you're feeling really good about where you are. I don't think the Giants are the class of this division. I don't. And I think the Padres and the Dodgers are much better in terms of talent. But if you're the Giants, you could not have gotten off to a better start than what they have right now.
What we learned is that Giants are good. And I mean, like, really good. Am I saying they're going to win the division? No. Look, the Dodgers are going to win this division. But the Giants have the best record in baseball at 8-1 through the first full week of the season. And you might be saying, okay, it's 9-10 games in. What does it matter? Well, here's why it matters to me. You are sitting at 8-1, best record in baseball, leading the division when the two teams in your division that were supposed to be incredible have been. They each started out 7-0 to start the year. So you have the Dodgers and Padres that both started 7-0. Dodgers better than that. Started 7-0, yet you are leading the division after the first full week. I think that goes to show you just how good this team is. I mean, you mentioned Elliot Ramos. All these names have been incredible. Robbie Ray has been really good in the bullpen or in the rotation as well. So you start looking and you say, okay, maybe this team is really talented. Look, Robbie Ray, Cy Young Award winner, coming off an injury. Young-Hoo Lee, apparently a stud, but coming off of an injury. Can he put together a full season? Elliot Ramos, all-star last year. Wilmer Flores off to a really good start. Justin Verlander in the rotation. Good first start, not a good second start, but obviously all the accolades you could ever want. It is how can he perform in the rotation, but also help everybody else. Logan Webb, superstar in the rotation. Back into the bullpen, great. So all of a sudden, I start thinking, wait, why hasn't everybody been a little bit higher on this team? I get the Dodgers are the best team in baseball. I get the Padres have more superstars and more firepower and are arguably a better team. But this Giants team is good. Everywhere you look, to me, it was about pitching for them. Starting rotation is going to be really solid, but can they score enough runs? It's been everything right now. Their entire rotation, their offense, the back end of their bullpen, their defense didn't commit an error until just a game or two ago. So, man, this team's been a lot of fun to watch. Best record in baseball, and it's because of everything. Starting pitching, bullpen, offense, defense. That's why this team is really good. And I don't think it's a fluke. Russ, again, I'll say this. I don't think they win the division. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think it's a fluke that the San Francisco Giants are good.
And here's my thing, Ben. I think we get very caught up. I know I get caught up in it should be about winning the World Series every year because that's really important. But being competitive is also really important. And I think executives around baseball use the word competitive in the wrong way. I think executives in baseball use the word competitive to mean we're not going to get our head kicked in every night. Competitive means we're going to be above 500 and knocking on the door of an appearance in the postseason. That's competitive to me. And if the Giants continue to play this way, that's going to be them. And they're an interesting roster because the pitching is the calling card, right? With Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Kyle Harrison, Justin Verlander. But you look at the lineup, and there's no superstar in there, yet they get the job done, right? You got guys like Lamont Wade Jr., Wilmer Flores doing it from each side of the plate in that platoon. You have Tyler Fitzgerald, who burst on the scene last year. You bring in Willie Adames, who's probably the biggest star in the lineup. Matt Chapman been doing it for a long time. They have this kid, Encarnacion, that fractured his wrist, but it's going to come back. Guy hits bombs. Young-Hoo Lee was one of the best free agents available internationally last year. If it wasn't for a torn labrum trying to make a play, in center field, we would have seen this version of him last year. So I really like what the Giants have been able to do. And you're right, the back end of that bullpen is nasty as well. If they could just play 500 baseball and get themselves in a position where maybe you have some games that go your way against the Giants, against the Dodgers, against the Padres, maybe you beat up on the Rockies a little bit, some of the bad teams in the National League, bad teams in the American League. You can look at the end of the season and say, all right, man, if we're at 86, 87 wins, maybe get to 90 if you have some, guys play above the back of their baseball card. You have, so Justin Verlander pitched back to the way he pitched a couple of years ago. Robbie Ray pitching the way he pitched a couple of years ago in Seattle. Now you're feeling really good about yourself where you could say, hey, maybe there's 3 teams in the National League West that make it to the postseason.
100%. And I think that's the thing with this team. And probably frustrating to some Giants fans, but they didn't go and spend a lot of money on a big-time name. They believed in their young guys. They believed in Elliot Ramos. They believed in Lee. They believed in so many of the names you just said. They added some veterans. They added Justin to the rotation. Then I love Willie Adames as a middle-of-the-lineup bat and some pop and can play a good shortstop, but they didn't make like a major splash. And I think that's working out for them, at least so far. They believed in their young guys, and it's working out. And again, like you said, if they can get to 85 to 90 wins, does that win you the NL West? No. But you start thinking about it, and to start the year, it seemed, okay, NL East, division winner, 2 wild cards. Who grabs the third? Probably somebody from the NL West. But this Braves slow start has at least allowed us to have the conversation of, well, wait a second. Maybe it's not 2 teams out of the NL East that'll grab a wild card spot. Maybe the Braves won't get there, or maybe the Mets won't be as good as we think. But so far, it's the Braves don't look very good. But it's at least allowed us the conversation of, wait a second. Maybe there's 2 wild card spots up for grabs in the NL West other than just 1. Color me not impressed by the NL Central. I think you have the division winner there, and that's it. So NL West might get 2 spots for either the Padres, the Giants, or the Diamondbacks. And all of a sudden, if you're the Giants sitting here at 8-1, you're thinking, man, let's get to the trade deadline being still a good team. Let's add a bat in there and let's go for this thing. And I don't see why that could not be the case. I absolutely think they could be a playoff team.
Games in April matter, right? You can be a game and a half out at the end of September wishing you won one or two more games in April. Now, a moment from the Giants-Mariners series this weekend. Obviously, the Giants swept the Mariners, but Victor Robles, as the Giants walked off the Mariners yesterday, jumping into the net in right field to make a play, made the catch, unfortunately broke his wrist in the process. That's not great. Going to be on the shelf for a little bit. But, Ben, you aren't very happy about some of the response from fans after the play about him jumping into the net to make the play on the ball.
Look, this is one of the great plays you'll ever see down the right field line at Oracle Park from an outfielder. This was an incredible baseball play. I tweeted about it, posted it. Obviously ends up with an injury. We knew at the time it was something bad. We just didn't exactly know what it was, but we knew. Look, you can see it here. Carted off, holding his wrist. You knew it was bad, but an incredible play. So I posted about it, and a lot of the responses, at least quite a few responses are, well, what's he doing going that hard? It's an irrelevant game in early April. Doesn't matter. By the way, they lost on the next play anyway. Who cares? You shouldn't be going that hard. And you know what, Russ? It really just pissed me off. Like, really pissed me off. I was a guy that played right field in my career professionally, played right field for 5 years. When you are Victor Robles or anybody at this level, you are elite. You are one of the best athletes on the planet playing your position at an elite level, on the highest level the game has to offer. You cannot get there by thinking, I should probably hold off here. I'm not going to go 100%. In fact, that's actually when you end up getting hurt more, is when you try and pump off the brakes a little bit and say, hold up, maybe I shouldn't go get this ball. You're a guy that sees a ball in the air, you're running after it and thinking, I can catch this ball. I'm going to do whatever I can to catch this ball. Last second, you jump, you go full force into the net, and you end up getting hurt. It was an incredible play. It could have potentially saved the game for the Mariners. He doesn't think to himself, man, if I don't catch, even if I do catch this, we're going to lose on the next play anyway. He's not a fortune teller. He didn't know that. But regardless, it just pissed me off, the response from people saying it's too early in the year. To your point, Russ, you said it a minute ago. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but game 10 matters just as much as game 162. There's 3 wild card teams. Every game matters. This play matters. But the big thing for me is, as a right fielder, you're not running after that ball thinking, man, I shouldn't go after this one 100%. That's not how you play the game of baseball. That's not how you get to the level that he's at. And if anybody has that response for a half a second, even the thought, cut it out. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, this isn't your, hit a ground ball to shortstop, busting it out of box on a play that you're going to be out on, right? This isn't that. This is you trying to make a play. You're running full speed as a really good outfielder, Victor Robles, in a difficult right field. Like, you have the carom off the brick walls to think about, right? You have the shade, the shadows. You have everything to think about. You're not thinking, let me stop, let me protect myself because it's only game 10. No, you're going out there trying to make a play, wishing the best to Victor Robles and that he has a speedy recovery. We have lots more to talk about here on FanDuel Sports Network Live. We talked about the Surgeon Giants, but the Tigers, they play at Comerica Park. They have been playing really good baseball. We update you on Tigers and Yankees coming up next.
This year, I'm trying to ace my college bets on FanDuel. So I'm here with somebody smarter than any professor I ever had. What's up, Chuck GPT?
What's up, Chuck IRL?
What do you think about this parlay?
It's great, but why don't you use me for something you really need help with?
What does Charles Barkley really need help with?
Hundreds of results found.
Uh-oh.
Pronouncing alma mater.
What?
Remembering that there's no East Virginia. Conflict resolution. Free throw percentage.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Learning the players' names.
You're sick. On vacation. And now your wife is faced with going out there. With them. Alone. But mom's having none of that. She got you a virtual visit with Amazon One Medical. And soon, beds will get delivered right to the hotel. Because no one gets out of joyful family fun. No one.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day.
Meet Jonathan Thompson, an international travel writer on a mission to discover the most dynamic adrenaline-fueled destinations on the planet. Tune in to join Jonathan as he explores the world's best adventure cities.
Girls' night!
Remember that place we got burritos from last time?
No, but with Ring, I can find it. Food delivery?
Nice.
There it is.
Wow, this really makes you look smart.
Thanks.
With Ring, you can type it and find it.
Final score of the Tigers game today. Tigers winning it 6-2 over the Bronx Bombers in Detroit at Comerica Park. Tigers playing really good baseball. But we want to remind you that watching your local team is easier than ever with FanDuel Sports Network. If we're part of your cable or satellite package, you're good to go. Just check your TV lineup. Prefer to stream, use your TV provider to log in on the FanDuel Sports Network app. No cable, no problem. Subscribe through the app with monthly, seasonal, or annual plans. You can even stream your team on Prime Video with an add-on subscription. Availability varies by region. Don't miss a pitch. Check getmyhometeams.com now to see if FanDuel Sports Network is in your area. Russ Dorsey, Ben Verlander. Ben, you know Detroit well, and the Tigers are playing really good baseball. We expect, because they played well last year, got themselves into the postseason. Them, Kansas City Royals at the top of that division in the AL Central. I think this is going to be a really fun division. Might not be the best division in Major League Baseball, but they're two teams built similarly, and the Tigers coming out here really hot. You obviously beat up on a really bad White Sox team, but a good Yankees team. They got some guys playing really well. Riley Green off to a really good start. Spencer Torkelson coming out of nowhere after years and years of waiting. Would Torque live up to that 1-1 status? 400 OBP so far this year. Kerry Bonds, Kerry Carpenter, 3 homers already on the year. And this is the one. Colt Keith leading the American League with 12 walks, on pace for well over 160 walks on the year. You might not get there, but it's good to have a guy that can get on base, playing multiple positions for you. I really like this team led by AJ Hinch. You got, Javi Baez playing center field. Like, that's coming out of nowhere. You got guys fitting into different spots. To me, if Riley Green is able to go from star to superstar, now you're cooking with gas. And that gives you a guy in the middle of that lineup, top of that lineup, that can carry you offensively. But if Spencer Torkelson is playing the way we expected him to play when he was the #1 overall pick in the 2020 draft, you have a couple of cornerstones there that you can really build around.
100%. And I mentioned it earlier, 5-1, 6-1 now since the start of the season. They play the Dodgers, they get swept there. You're 6-1 since then, including games at Seattle, 3 at home against the White Sox, then today's game against the New York Yankees. And it's all those names that are doing it. You don't look at this team and think, oh my God, superstars everywhere. There's one, Tarek Skubal, absolute superstar. Other than that, it's just piecing it together, and they are talented enough. You mentioned Riley Green. If he can take that step from really good to star, that's going to be huge for this team. And one thing I want to say about Spencer Torkelson, he was 1-1 in the draft. Coming out of Arizona State, guy was a stud. A lot of people thought, man, him and Riley Green are going to be the reason this team turns around. Well, 2 years ago, pretty good, but not great. Last year, bad year, ends up getting sent down to AAA. Coming into this year, I watched him a lot. I saw his new approach. I wasn't done believing in him, Russ, to the point where before the season started, I got these shirts that said, I still believe in Torque. That's why I got these shirts, because I still believe in him. And here he is so far, hitting .324 with 2 homers and OPS over 1,000 on the year. If he can be that middle of the order bat, It's exactly what they needed. I spent my offseason tweeting, it's a great day for the Detroit Tigers to sign Alex Bregman. And I'm not yet ready to say that the lineup doesn't need Bregman because it's not true. They needed him. But through 10 games, 5th in the league in batting average, 4th in slugging, 4th in OPS, 7th in total bases. This offense has been really good. So you add a best pitcher in baseball at the top of the rotation with Jack Flaherty behind him, Jackson Jobe, a future stud in that rotation now with an offense that's getting it done. This team's a lot of fun. They're really good. By the way, Gleyber Torres still on the IL. You're without Parker Meadows. You're without Matt Vierling. You're without a center fielder, and you're still in first place playing good baseball. I like this team a lot.
Yeah, and they have a farm system that continues to have top prospects. You talk about, Max Clark, a guy that could be up before too long, even though he's a young guy. And I think I'll go back to Torkelson because I think that's a guy that came into spring training with no more chances left. It was either torque, you hit, or you're probably going to be done in your time as a Detroit Tiger. And you're holding up the shirt there. I still believe in torque. I was with you because I was a torque guy. When he came out of the draft, there were very few players that I saw during his time at Arizona State that were better than Spencer Torkelson, a guy that controlled the strike zone, got on base, hit bombs, took walks, played a decent first base. He was playing third base at the time there at ASU. I think now that he's seeing the success, and to me, the thing that he needed to get back to was controlling the strike zone, because that was a guy that took his walks. And when he got to the big leagues, he wasn't taking his walks. So now that he's starting to see pitches differently, he looks like he has his eye back. I think that's going to be big for his future. Now, Ben, we got to get to a story that we talked about on our first show, the torpedo bats, right? Now, it's a story that you and I are frustrated by because it's really hard to hit in the big leagues. But Commissioner Rob Manfred was asked about it, and he had something to say, quote, "Issues like the torpedo bat and the debate around it demonstrate the fact that baseball still occupies a unique place in our culture." He continues on and says, "People get into a complete frenzy over something that's really nothing at the end of the day." This has rarely been one of the few things that I agree with the commissioner on, because he's absolutely right. I think we're making much about nothing. I think this is something that Twitter got a hold of. People who don't necessarily watch baseball as closely as you or I, or players. And I wrote about it last week, talking to players around the game, talking to some managers, some different people. And it's just like, look, guys have been customizing bats for years. We talked about that on our first show together. That's true. But now you're starting to see it kind of taper off. Guys are starting to use these bats, use them in BP, use them in games. They're like, you know what? Not for me. Going back to my old model. And that's okay. That was going to happen the whole time. But you see Jazz Chisholm's bat, which to me is probably the most aggressive of the torpedo bats. Like, you see one in person. I was at MLB Network a couple days ago, and I was holding Adley Rutschman's bat. It doesn't look that much different from a standardized bat that we've been seeing around the big leagues for years and years and years. I think you're going to see a couple of these bats that are different. But Brendan Donovan said he's been using his torpedo bat since 2021. So this is something, as the weeks go on, I think we're going to hear less and less about.
I played the game for a long time, 5 years professionally. Didn't quite make it. Maybe I needed a torpedo bat. But look, people change their bats all the time. You're all the time trying to tweak it. You're adding a half an ounce here. You're adding half an inch here. You're changing the knob. You're changing where you grip the bat, the handle of the bat. You're constantly looking for something. And players have been doing this for years. It's just become popular because we saw with the Yankees. Michael Kay talked about it, and then they hit 1 million home runs and they were off and running. Yeah. To me, it's a nothing for me. Like I'm not over talking about it per se, because it's interesting, but like, it's not that crazy. Like, it's just a player changing their bat because that's what's constantly happening in baseball. You're constantly, as a pitcher, changing your grip and working on grips and changing what whatever you have on your hand or your fingers to make your grip a little bit better. You're constantly changing things. As a hitter, I'm constantly working on things. I have one weapon to take to the plate against that pitcher that's throwing his weapon at me to get me out. How can I best use it and shape it to do the most damage? And now we just have another tool to use. Okay, I can take the barrel, move it a centimeter or two down where I'm making the most contact, and maybe that helps me out. It's the most normal thing of all time. The game's constantly evolving, and I agree with the commissioner. Like, yeah, it's great. People are talking about it. It's because they're just learning about it, but they're talking about nothing really. There's nothing that different than it always has been. Russ, you wrote about it. You talked to a bunch of players about it. I know you just mentioned Brendan Donovan. What else you got for us? What else did you learn?
Yeah, well, here's my thing. I talked to Rocco Baldelli last week, and he said, look, when I played, I like thinner bats, right? Because I think the one thing that the misconception is that guys haven't been changing the barrel for decades. It's something guys used to have, the big-headed barrels. And he said that wasn't for me because that wasn't my swing type. If that was my swing and I was a guy that wanted to get behind the baseball, maybe that would be something that I did. But he said that wasn't my game, so I didn't. I like thinner bats. And you're going to see guys that like different handles because, hey, I feel like I can get to the strike zone and stay in the strike zone longer with this bat. So we're going to see adjustments. We're going to see guys. Honestly, Brent, my prediction, by the time we get to the end of the season, the guys that, change bats are probably going to have somewhere near the same stats that they've always had, right? It's always going to balance out because that is baseball.
Except for Jazz. It's going to look inflated because he's at Yankee Stadium for a full year.
It is. A full year at Yankee Stadium, it might look different for Jazz. You're right about that. Gonna take a break here on FanDuel Sports Network Live, but we're gonna leave you with some guys that went on the IL over the weekend. More coming up next.
You're sick, on vacation. Good thing Amazon Pharmacy will deliver meds right to the hotel. Because your wife's not going out there, alone, with them.
FanDuel held a shooting contest to promote its new MySpend tool. MySpend makes it easy to view your deposit and bet history all in one place. Because betting without knowing how much you're spending is like shooting in the dark. See the whole picture. Make FanDuel's MySpend tool part of your system and stop shooting in the dark.
I'm with George Mason University forward Josh Oduro for the FDA's Don't Get Burned Sunscreen Challenge.
Bring it on.
I'm not getting burned today. I'm using a broad spectrum sunscreen.
The FDA recommends broad spectrum sunscreens with an SPF of 15 or higher with other sun protection measures to reduce the risk of sunburn and skin cancer.
You smoked me, dude.
That's because I use sunscreen, so I wouldn't get burned by you and the sun.
Broad spectrum sunscreen. It's the winning play every time.
Hey, there's someone at my door.
Hi, you are currently being recorded.
Hey, put the package back.
With Ring, you can make them hit the road from anywhere. Meet Jonathan Thompson, an award-winning international travel writer on a mission to discover the world's most dynamic, adrenaline-fueled destinations. From once-in-a-lifetime outdoor adventures to local traditions and cultures, Jonathan will immerse you in the most vibrant metropolitan areas. Elevate your senses, ignite your wanderlust, and let the journey begin as he explores the world's best adventure cities.
Welcome back to FanDuel Sports Network Live. Want to remind you, watching your local team is easier than ever with FanDuel Sports Network. If we're part of your cable or satellite package, you're good to go. Just check your TV lineup. For the stream, use your TV provider login on the FanDuel Sports Network app. No cable, no problem. Subscribe to the app with monthly, seasonal, or annual plans. You can even stream your team on Prime Video with an add-on subscription. Availability varies by region. Don't miss a pitch. Check getmyhometeams.com now to see if FanDuel Sports Network is in your area. FanDuel Sports Network Live, Russ Dorsey, Ben Verlander. And Ben, we've been talking about a lot of teams that have been surging and playing good ball. a team that's come out the gate playing some good baseball. And I kill this team all the time because sometimes I just look at them and like, why? Why do you do the things that you do? The Los Angeles, I can't even say their name. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And look at some of those numbers, man. Logan O'Hoppe, one of the best catchers in the big leagues. Mike Trout, always the big question. Will he be in the lineup? 3 homers already. Kyron Pears, who, young guy coming up last year, struggled at the big league level. He's been swinging a hot bat. Kenley Jansen, potential future Hall of Famer, pitching well for the Angels. Ben Joyce getting it done, 102, 103, 104 miles an hour. Ben, I gotta ask you, do we have to start paying attention to the Orange County native LA Angels?
Well, let's keep it easy there for a second. But what I will say is they haven't lost a series yet. They're playing good baseball. They're one of only, I think, 4 teams to not have lost a series yet. And by the way, we put up Mike Trout in that graphic. He hasn't gotten going yet. The guy's hitting 188 on the year. He did homer in 3 straight games. The power has been there. The OPS is creeping up towards where it is for him. But he hasn't gotten going yet. Really, this offense, besides Logan O'Hoppe, Jorge Soler has been running into balls, but isn't, when Jorge Soler gets hot, he gets really hot. But you start looking around, Russ, and you think, okay, this Angels team has went out and got Yusei Kikuchi, a good arm for the rotation, has Mike Trout, still elite, by the way. Mike Trout's still an elite player in the game. They went out and got Jorge Soler. They have Ben Joyce throwing 1,000,000 miles an hour in the back end of the bullpen. You got some good players on this team. What are we? Maybe they should be good. Maybe the reason we didn't. Let me ask you this, Russ. Is the reason we don't believe in the Angels this year because of what we all know about the Angels over the past 5 to 10 years? Not quite 10, but 5+ years. Or could this roster actually be pretty good?
No, it's 100%. A couple things. It's what we've seen over the last 10 years where you've had not maybe the best player we've seen in 25 years in Mike Trout in his prime, and he's the best player in the world, and they go nowhere. Can't make it the postseason. Guy's been to the playoffs 1 time. That's a travesty. And then they get this kid named Shohei Ohtani, who they also have in their lineup with Trout in their prime. They go to the playoffs. How many times, Ben? 0 times. That is the reason that you look at the Angels and you say, I don't know, man. And in a year where the AL West isn't necessarily as top heavy with, the Astros going through their kind of retool and refinding themselves after, Tucker and Bregman move on, and the Mariners, who knows? Like, can they hit this year? I don't know. I look at the Angels and I say, all right, can you get Trout to 140 games? That has to be the bar. Like, getting Mike Trout 140 games, getting him 500 ABs, that is a big win for you. And then you see what happens after that. Maybe you get Jorge Soler from a couple years ago, right? Maybe you get Kyle Hendricks to bounce back. Jose Soriano becomes a guy that can be in your rotation. Maybe you get a bounce back from Reed Detmers in your rotation, and you get some of these guys to really build on themselves. And hey, maybe middle of the year, Christian Moore, top pick in last year's draft, comes up, plays well for you. You find a spot for him on the roster. Now you can kind of say, all right, where are we at the trade deadline? Maybe you add a piece here, add a piece there. But if I'm going to be realistic, I just want Mike Trout to be on the field for the duration of this season and play well, because history shows, similar to Jacob deGrom on the mound, when he's in there, he's a generational talent.
Yeah, and if I'm going to be realistic about this team, it's not good enough. The rotation's not good enough to hold up. The offense can be good. They definitely added pieces. I love O'Hoppe. He's a stud. I love Mike Trout. And here's my reasoning. And there's not a lot in sports and baseball, I guess in life really, that everyone can agree on. But one thing that we can all agree on as baseball fans is we are pissed off at the Angels for ruining the prime of Mike Trout. We're not allowing us to see Mike Trout on the game's biggest stage in October. Mike Trout has played in 3 playoff games over the course of his entire career, and they got swept. the Angels have robbed us of Mike Trout's playoff career. And they really haven't done much about it. Then what do? Okay, it falls into your lap what has gone on to be perhaps the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
So then you have one of the greatest of all time in Mike Trout, one of the greatest of all time in Shohei Ohtani. Surely you're maybe the best team in baseball history. No. They're not even a playoff team. That's why people are pissed off at the Angels, and that's why people don't believe in them. Why would we believe in them because you added Yusei Kikuchi and Jorge Soler? You weren't any good when you had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. That's why people don't believe in them. That's why I don't believe in them this year. Can they be good? Sure, they can be decent, but they're not a playoff team. Until they get into the playoffs, I will not believe that this team is a playoff team. The culture's off. They don't know how to win. They've ruined Mike Trout's playoff legacy because he doesn't have one. I could go on about the Angels, but I didn't know they would frustrate me this much, but here we are. I went on a tangent.
That's usually me when I'm talking about the Angels. One day, Ben, you're going to tell your kids, and I'm going to tell my kids that Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani play together.
And they're not going to believe
They went
us.
to the playoffs a grand total of 0 times. How about that? We got to get the fine folks to break. More coming up here on FanDuel Sports Network Live, but the Angels that we just talked about facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. These are probables for the series.
I'm with 2018 lacrosse national champion Christian Gaudy for the FDA's Don't Get Burned Sunscreen Challenge.
Bring it, Daryl.
She's tough, but I won't get burned today. I'm using a broad spectrum sunscreen.
The FDA recommends broad-spectrum sunscreens with an SPF of 15 or higher with other sun protection measures to reduce the risk of sunburn and skin cancer.
You smoked me, Kristen.
That's because I use sunscreen, so I wouldn't get burned by you and the sun.
Broad spectrum sunscreen. It's a winning play every time.
There I was, 16, divorced, remarried with a baby, another on the way, and I could barely read or write. Getting my high school diploma was a catalyst I needed. Now I have a bachelor's, a master's, and I became a teacher. When I look at all these success stories, I could not help but think it all started by getting my high school diploma.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
You care for the house, the kids, and our future. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's save a little more now so we can create the retirement we want. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Wrapping things up on FanDuel Sports Network Live, but want to remind you watching your local team is easier than ever with FanDuel Sports Network. If we're part of your cable or satellite package, you're good to go. Just check your TV lineup for the stream. Use your TV provider login on the FanDuel Sports Network app. No cable, no problem. Subscribe to the app with monthly, seasonal, or annual plans. You can even stream your team on Prime Video with an add-on subscription. Availability varies by region. Don't miss a pitch. Check getmyhometeams.com now to see if FanDuel Sports Network is in your area. Before we get you guys out of here today, it's the time of small sample sizes. And Ben, small sample sizes can be fun. So we want to show you guys what's going on around the game through this first 2 weeks of the season, because there are some really fun stats out there. Let's look at first and second baseman. First baseman, you know, you wonder why guys aren't getting paid on the market. This might be what teams are looking at, a 663 OPS. Meanwhile, the guys at the Keystone, second baseman, 760 OPS. That is fairly impressive. The St. Louis Cardinals, they're swinging it. but they aren't exactly throwing it. One of the worst ERA in all of Major League Baseball, best team batting average, and 14 walk-off wins this season. That's almost 10% of all games. There were 5 on Sunday. Will be the third highest percentage in the season since 2010. But Ben, the one at the top, we talked a lot about Vladdy Jr. today, getting that big time extension. You know, you think about Matt Olson in Atlanta. When he's on, he's probably one of the best first basemen in the big leagues. I think this is brought down a little bit because Freddie Freeman's been on the IL, but not looking great for the guys over at first base.
Yeah, look, here's why this is happening. 1, torpedo bats and Jazz Chisholm, and 2, the Toronto Blue Jays signed the literal Barry Bonds that plays second base, and Andres Jimenez, who seemingly is hitting a home run every game. Look, I love early season overreactions. This, I promise you, within the next couple of weeks is going to flip-flop. First basemen are going to get going. You mentioned Matt Olson not hitting close to 200. That's not going to last. Pete Alonso hadn't gotten going yet in the homer category. Freddie Freeman, Christian Walker is not really going yet. There are great first base. Vladdy Jr. I don't think has a homer yet. So there are great first basemen, offense first basemen that aren't exactly going yet. And on the contrary, there's some defense first second basemen that are playing their tails off right now and hitting a bunch of homers. So I love to see it. I don't think it lasts much longer. But look, Jazz playing second base permanently and playing at Yankee Stadium does really help. And the position of second base is evolving from what we always knew it to be, which is a short guy that's quick, doesn't have the best arm, but plays a good defense and hits for a high average. There's not much of a place for that in baseball anymore. You got to bring some thump to the lineup, and we're seeing the second base position start to evolve a little bit.
That was exactly the point I was going to make. Like, second base isn't the same anymore, right? You got 100%. Matt McClain, who we both love hitting bombs. Ketel Marte is a perennial MVP candidate at second base. You got guys like Jackson Holliday going from short to second base, right? Like playing big time baseball. So yeah, the positions change. Can you hit 20 homers in the big leagues? Yes. You're going to play second base then, right? Or do we have a shortstop already? Cool. Go play second. Like, yeah, this isn't the days of hitting 245, 250, 260 and playing Gold Glove defense at second base. No, there's a lot of guys. You know, Mookie was playing second base, you know, a couple years ago when he was trying to decide if you want to play infield, play the outfield. Yep. Mookie's hitting between 30 and 40 homers a year. You got to bring some thunder to the middle. You got guys in the middle of the lineup. You know, I think about Marcus Semien, one of the best players in the game, playing second base. Like, that's the type of guys we have in the game right now. I do think the game's better for it because you still see Gold Glove caliber infielders like Marcus Semien who can give it to you offensively, but also be able to bring it defensively.
Yeah, there's no place anymore for just a defensive guy unless it's behind the plate. They control the game. Catchers is a different story, but even the, you know, like the undersized guys still play second, but you're not gonna be in the big leagues if you can't hit. Jose Altuve is the shortest guy in baseball, but I mean, he can hit 300 in the big leagues with 30 homers. I mean, he's a stud. Marcus Semien, as you mentioned. So the position has certainly changed, and I completely agree. It's good for the game for sure.
Ben, before we get out of here, what do you make of the St. Louis Cardinals? Because we showed the graphic there, best batting average in baseball, worst team ERA in baseball. What are the Cardinals?
We are who we thought they were. They aren't going to pitch. Their rotation is way too old. They don't have a great starting rotation, and they've got some good bats in the lineup. Look, we talked about it last time. We're believers in Lars Nootbaar's advanced analytics show that he could be a stud in this game. I wasn't done believing in Nolan Arenado being a star in the league. I still think he's good. Wilson Contreras, Nolan Gorman can run into 3 any given night and hit a bunch of homers in a game. The offense has the potential to be really good. They don't have the pitching. So as much as I can tell you the second base, first base trend will flip-flop, this one might not. The Cardinals offense isn't going to finish first in the league, but their pitching very well could finish last in the league.
Last but not least, walk-offs accounted for almost 10% of victories this year. Is there anything been better than a walk-off homer?
No, more. Give me more. Give me all the walk-offs. I love it. One quick story before we finish up. One of my first professional season, I had a really good year, was an all-star, was playing in the New York Penn League in Connecticut and playing really well. So everybody thinks like, oh, you're about to go up. We had a doubleheader. Second game of the doubleheader goes to extra innings naturally on fireworks night. I hit a home run. The fireworks go off the second I hit home. Walk-off home run, first walk-off home run. Fireworks go off when I touch home. And I get in the locker room. Coach calls me in, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going up. They're like, hey, it was a noise ordinance. It was getting too late. Those fireworks had to go off. You saved us thousands of dollars, and we wanted to give you some money. Here's a $20 bill. And I was like, wait a second. I saved you thousands of dollars, and you're giving me a 20 for my first walk-off, and I thought I was going up to AA. Didn't happen. But great story nonetheless.
That's awesome. I love that. The last walk-off that I saw in person, Freddie Freeman, Game 1 World Series.
I was there too. Same.
Sick. That was sick. Sick moment. Ben, this was great. Another great show here on FanDuel Sports Network Live. Let's do it again later in the week, yeah?
Let's do it, buddy.
See you guys later.
I love betting on the NBA with FanDuel, especially when I've got the world's greatest basketball mind on my side. What's up, Chuck GPT?
What's up, Chuck IRL?
What do you think about this parlay?
It's great, but why don't you use me for something you really need help with?
What does Charles Barkley really need help with?
Hundreds of results found.
Uh-oh.
Fashion sense, basic math.
What?
Being on time, portion control, conflict resolution, enunciating, free throw percentage.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
Eating vegetables.
Where's that game we always play?
I don't know, but with Ring, I can find it. Board game. Oh, man.
If I may, search raccoons.
There's a lot of results. Oh, look, the masquerade party. What a party.
Girl, you have a raccoon problem.
With Ring, you can type it and find it.
Meet Jonathan Thompson, an international travel writer on a mission to discover the most dynamic adrenaline-fueled destinations on the planet. Tune in to join Jonathan as he explores the world's best adventure cities.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
That's infected. Maybe getting a tattoo at a 3-day music festival was a bad idea. Lucky for you, an Amazon One medical virtual visit can happen anywhere. Even here. An Amazon pharmacy will deliver antibiotics right to you. So you can breathe easy. Well, sorta.